bienvenidos. Vamos a seguir con nuestra aventura en Genshin con el acto 5 de Fontaine. No sé si acabaremos aquí o si habrá otro capítulo más, pero bueno, vamos a darle a ver qué tal. Antes de nada deciros que tenéis el link en la descripción de mi canal de Discord por si queréis uniros, y de mi canal de Twitch, donde ahora mismo estamos en directo y hemos hecho todo el acto 5 de Fontaine. Y ahora sí que sí, let's go. A ver, let's go. Busca Furina en Poisson.
This place looks deserted. Guess all the survivors must have evacuated already. All that's left here are signs of death at station.
Ahí tenemos.
Could Furina really be here?
Furina de
Let's try
Fontaine. Uy, son las 10, jajaja. Ahora empieza el pic de la misión. Pic de Fontaine.
That's Furina, right over there. She really...
Should I just give up? This is all meaningless.
Eso me suena haberlo escuchado.
What was meant to happen did happen after all. Everyone's dead. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Give up, Furina. There's no point in holding out.
No tiene sentido seguir con ella.
I'm sorry. But what can I even do? Other than... Who's that?
Don't worry, Furina, it's just us.
So it is you, blonde
La
traveler from
capacidad de
another
Furina
land.
de
Why,
cambiar
I almost
de
thought you were someone from that mob
personalidad
of
tan
my
rápido.
ignorant subjects.
Soy yo.
Come to kneel and beg for my forgiveness.
¿Dani ya escuchó a Furina llorando a la fuente? Sí. Sí, la escuché.
Furina,
Después de Boshi.
you were crying just now, weren't you? The tears...
What do you mean, tear stains? Oh, I remember. The show at the Opera House earlier this morning. Who did that uncivilized rabble think they were? Disturbing my enjoyment of the arts.
Número 1 de Fontaine.
They even dare to tout their Archon. I must teach them a lesson. I can just imagine their twisted and frustrated faces once they realize that I'm Oh, and I'm sure Nouvellette and those people from the Maréchaussée Phantom are freaking out right next to them too. Of course not.
Hey, there she is! The Hydro Archon's over there! Quick, after her!
Furina, those people seem to be after you.
They are? They're just some rabid fans who went, that's against the rules. I can't let them get their way.
Furina just ran off. Quick, we have to catch up with her.
¿Cómo corre? ¿En serio los han perdido de vista?
This should be the place, right? Hey, Furina! There's a good hiding spot over here. Quick, come to Paimon before the rest of them catch up.
What is this place?
Ta-da! Here!
Gracias por seguirme.
Fine. I suppose haste is warranted. Lead the way.
Paimon's exhausted.
I'm so tired. No, I mean, I merely gave in to the sheer enthusiasm they display. You're right.
Yep, that's a good girl.
¿Se va a inundar esto otra vez?
What's happening? The ground's shaking.
Yeah, a quake of this kind preceded the flooding in Poisson, didn't it?
Poisson.
It can't be. It's happening again.
Well, there's no need to worry too much about that. Nouvelette's made some emergency plans, so the...
Yeah, I hope you're right. But the people of Poisson... It's true. I've been investigating the prophecy for hundreds of years. I once had informants all over Tevat, searching for clues and feeding information back to me. I've tried all kinds of ways, too, to hold back the sea, but all my efforts proved to be futile in the end. We cannot make an enemy of the divine. No matter what we do, the will of the heavenly principles will have its way. Give up. I do love the sound of that phrase. It would mean indeed. I've thought about giving up so many times, especially after we almost lost Poisson. Fate is really unreasonable, isn't it? It has no heart and obeys no rules. But just now, it all became clear to me. I still don't have the... As long as the final moment hasn't come, it's still not too late. Don't worry. I will keep hope alive for everyone until the very end. Well, that's enough for now. I got the impulse to play the stricken maiden, but honestly, considering my rank, don't take any of what I just said seriously. How could I possibly let Fontaine fall to the whims of...
Come on! Paimon could have sworn you were actually being honest just now.
Share my burden. That's impossible. It was fated right from the start that this would be my duty. A witness. Yes, I've heard that you came to Tevat from beyond the stars, yes. And if Tevat is, in its entirety, a show on a stage, then you're... If that's the case...
Cinemática. Hostia, trucazo de Lini, ¿no? Hostia, trucazo.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes my opening performance.
Hostia, trucazo de Lini.
Now, without further ado, we may proceed to the trial.
So, this is what it is. Yes, you deserve praise for the effort you took to raise the dramatics. Do not forget, however, that I am Focalor, the god of justice, the embodiment of justice itself.
May I interpret these words as your refusal to stand trial? In that case, you will have the opportunity to defend your honor through a duel.
You would draw your blade against a god?
Yes,
I see. It seems like you have made up your mind.
Paimon can't believe it. She just surrendered.
What the heck is going on?
Wow, how utterly humiliating.
Lady Farina, what is the
Shh! It would seem that there has been a misunderstanding.
Looking for excuses again, huh?
I raised my hands just now to indicate my acceptance of the trial. No duel shall be necessary. I will admit that I've been running away for a long time. I'm sorry, everyone. I was unable to protect the people of Poisson. You are not the only ones to be disappointed in me. But now, it is time for the Hydro Archon to show you her courage and resolve. I, Farina, will use this trial to show the world the true meaning of justice. This time, I will protect you. Applaud and rejoice. One of the most outrageous and fantastical arcs known to the opera epiclé. Mark my words. This shall be one of the most exhilarating and brilliant shows ever to grace the stage of Fontaine. The trial of the Hydro Archon, Focalor, will now begin.
Now begin. The show begins.
Oh, now we're making history!
Why does it feel like Farina just took over the whole thing? Like, also, even though she's still acting super dramatic, she is taking this serious.
All right, then. Who will be my opponent in this trial?
The court asks the prosecutor to please take the stand.
Is that so? Very well. Then please speak, witness of Tivat.
Es verdad. O sea, teníamos la oportunidad, pero a ver, tampoco lo sabíamos como tal que sin necesidad de llegar a esto iba contándonos, ¿sabes?
As a final question before the trial begins. Just how much work did you do to force me onto this stage?
Well, we did do a lot of prep after the meeting that day.
Pero Paimon, cállate.
I can go over the tasks assigned to the Spina di Rosula, since they were rather straightforward and easy.
Navia, the president of the Spina di Rosula.
Most of the people who participated in the disturbance this morning were my subordinates. They changed into plain clothes and came to the opera house as the people's resentment against their archon has been building as more and more of the prophecy is fulfilled. Moreover, according to our understanding and analysis of you, when something like that occurred, So, we arranged for a second group to lie in wait there.
So, you mean the ones who scoured the settlement for me were also from the Spina?
And their goal was to force you to step into the giant magic box so you may personally participate in the greatest magic performance in all of
That's right. That house was a magic box, rather than some...
As the super ultimate version of the setup that I used when I first performed at the Opera Epiclese, the volume of the box was increased by a whole order of magnitude, and the distance it traversed was the entire gap between Poisson and Air was an archon instead of a human. My thanks, Farina. Without your help, we could never have pulled off such an extraordinary
You're welcome?
Of course, this performance was only made possible with Father's support. The House of the Hearth spent a massive amount of labor in Mora to pull We had to select a location, construct the giant magic box, dig a tunnel, and open up a path through the water.
So, in other words, the earthquake that we felt within the giant...
That's right. It wasn't a sign of another disaster to come.
Then, I can guess Nervilette and Cloran's parts. You gathered a crowd, prepared a stage, and made sure that the champ... Also that as soon as I appeared on the stage, the trial may commence without a hitch.
Yes, that is correct.
Creo de Neobi.
Well, Clorand, I must commend you for your courage. Only the most outstanding champion duelist in all of Fontaine would accept a duel with an archon without flinching.
Thank you.
As for you, traveler, I suppose your role was to keep me distracted, but you'd make sure that I didn't notice anything amiss before revealing yourself as my prosecutor once we'd... Oh? Is that so? Then I suppose I must... It's fine. It matters not. The stage is already set, so there's no reason to disappoint the audience. Let's see this trial through to the...
Let's go.
Madam Prosecutor, please allow me to pass this along. This is a document that Miss Charlotte applied for and received permission to share with...
Huh? Charlotte wanted to give us something? Oh, so she's here too! Hey, Charlotte! Oh, let Paimon see. Wait. Then that means this document is a perfect timeline. So in other words, we can refer to this anthology of evidence every time we want to use something from our journey. Let's quickly confirm the information in it. Just think of it as a refresher, alright?
You defeated the...
Vale. Oh,
The words of someone as extraordinary as a witch can probably only be truly understood when... I nearly lost my awesome friend Navia.
Ah, vale, todo eso es hablando.
This is the first time...
Vale. Ok. ¡Que empiece el juego!
The prosecution and the defense are both in position. The trial shall now begin.
Shall begin.
Oh, come on, Nervilette. There's no need to repeat all the unimportant legalese. Just fast forward to the part where the prosecution lays out my offenses. As the defendant and the lead actress of this performance, I still have, of course, it is only natural for humans to struggle to understand the action.
That's true. But my charge here is unrelated to your conduct as an Archon.
Ay, que está hablando, no me había dado cuenta, perdona.
Instead, I would like to charge you as a fraud who's never been the Archon in the first place.
Wait, what was that? Lady Farina's a fraud?
Hey, I came here thinking that we were going to try the Hydro Archon for forsaking her duty, but did I...
Charge accepted. Lady Farina,
Viene fuerte.
do you plead guilty to the charge? Lady Farina.
I plead not guilty. How can I be There is no way that I, Focalor, otherwise known as Farina de Fontaine, a member of the Seven and the Regina of all waters, kindreds, peoples, and laws of Fontaine, could be anything other than your true Archon.
Yeah, even though Lady Farina can be rather eccentric, isn't it going too far to doubt her very identity?
Yeah, I've never questioned her identity either. Sure, Lady Farina can be super irresponsible.
I have cause to believe that common sense will prevail in this case. Many of the members of the audience have known me as the Hydro Archon ever... See? Even the Oratrice has decided to show me its favor. Are you sure you want to commit to a charge? If you wish to drop the case, I can promise you as the God of Justice that you will not have to face trial for making a false accusation. We will treat everything...
An argument with near impossible odds, huh? We have to not only refute Farina's claim...
Well, I tried to give you the chance to surrender. If you must persist, then let me ask. And if I was not the Archon, then how did I manage to live for over 500 years?
¿Después o antes? Llevo 500 años en este cargo, ha dicho. Y ha dicho, ¿cómo justificas que haya vivido durante más de 500 años? Más de 500 años llevo viviendo, pero 500 en este cargo. Vale.
First of all, you may be a member of another long-lived race, which would allow you to...
Who gave you that idea? Was it the knave? You'd sink so low as to...
A curse? I once thought it possible that the aura of an Archon might naturally resemble a type of curse. But in light of this claim, perhaps what I sensed was not your divinity, but a curse after all.
Pero preguntas. 500 años siendo arconte, se responde a tu pregunta de antes. No lo responde. No lo responde. Lo siento, pero no lo responde. Te está adelantando, no hagas ninguna suposición acelerada. Sí, tranquilos.
Neverlet sensed it too, huh?
Lady Farina is actually a human?
Well, it is true that it's extremely difficult to tell humans and gods apart just by...
Well, don't start celebrating too early now. Even if I have been carrying a curse like you said. Besides, everyone knows that the main difference between a human and a god is the possession of authority. For centuries, manifestations of my authority have served the nation of Fontaine. One need only to turn their eyes towards the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinal in this very opera house.
Vale.
You tried to reference the Oratrice, but weren't you as confused as all the rest of us when—
Didn't I make myself clear at the time? The decisions of the gods are naturally difficult for humans to comprehend.
Lady Farina, I believe a reminder of your current circumstances is in order. While the court is in session, the principles of justice and the law must come before all else. You will prove yourself unable to defend against the prosecution's charges if you continue to withhold vital information against the rules of the court.
I never thought you'd use that kind of rhetoric against me.
That was no trick of rhetoric, Lady Farina. I've merely reiterated the rules of the court.
So, you neither knew why Child was declared guilty, nor did you understand the structure and operate instead of having been created by you. The manifestations of authority you mentioned—
The real Hydro Archon. Well, now you're really losing me. It is true that I did not know why the Oratrice handed out that verdict unilaterally. You can't argue that just because a divine creation is—
She's still throwing out all kinds of excuses. Seems like she's confident that we won't be able to produce proof that she has no power over the Oratrice.
My power as an Archon. There are many ordinary citizens in the audience.
If that poses a concern, I'm prepared to extend my—
You don't need to go that far.
Porque no puede.
Aren't you the Hydro Archon? Or is it that you can't even wield the power of Hydro?
Indemnitium! Yes! It's all because of Indemnitium! All Archons derive their power from the faith of the people, and I've converted the people. Thus did I give up all of my divine power to provide everyone with energy for their daily lives.
Isn't that a huge stretch?
Yeah, no matter how generous an Archon can be, how could they give up all their power? Can a god with no power—
It seems like nobody's buying Farina's excuse.
Hey, come now, everyone. Please don't stare at me as if I'm still the same Farina you knew, right? The one that you loved. Please, you've got to believe me.
If what the prosecutor said is true, she really has committed a grave offense.
Did she deceive all of us? And all of our parents and grandparents too? And—
Enough. That's enough. Tell me then, if I'm not the real Hydro Archon, if you have no evidence of another Hydro Archon's existence, nor can you find anyone who can back up their claim to be such, then what grounds have you to say that I'm not actually—
Wow, she came up with yet another argument. Ugh.
¿Qué le puedo...? ¿Qué pruebas puede demostrar que Furina es humana? Con eso no.
It has been established that all Fontanians can dissolve in water from the primordial sea. And that means...
Since you insist on claiming to be a god and not a human, then there's a method that you can use right here and now to eliminate all suspicion.
Miss Navia, please apply to serve as a temporary attorney for the prosecution before addressing the court. Though you act in partnership with the prosecutor, you must still adhere to proper procedure.
Super sorry, Monsieur Chief Justice. Now. I've brought some seawater from Poisson. As everyone knows, a massive flood struck the area not long, including those of some of my closest friends. So, Miss Farina, would you dare to touch some of the seawater? If we are to believe that you are indeed the real Hydro Archon, touching the seawater would have no effect on you. All it should do, but if you don't dare to touch it, then we would have basically proved the reverse. Oh, and I must remind you that after the disaster at Poisson, nobody wants to see any more people dissolve. I do hope you'll act prudently and choose the simpler path of admitting guilt.
Navia from the Spina di Rasula. The Spina has governed Poisson for many years. I guess...
If Lady Farina is indeed just a human, she's probably Fontanian like all the rest of us. Would she really dare to try?
Se va a atrever.
Lady Farina, this test has been unilaterally proposed by the prosecution, as it falls outside the realm of standard court proceedings.
Well, of course he had to tell her that, but refusing to participate is basically the same as a confession of guilt.
She's just staring at the water without saying a single word.
What's going on? Is she really planning to... That's not what we thought she would...
Due to the inherent risk of the test, Lady Farina, you may...
What?
Hey! I'm fine! Look at me, everyone!
Se va a desaparecer.
My hand is...
Will
you believe me now? I really am your Archon!
Miss Siegewin? If you're present, Miss Siegewin, please come forward and attend...
Siegewin? Don't be nervous. It'll just take a few seconds.
Llevaba el guante, ¿no?
That should be enough.
Please announce the results of your evaluation to the court, Miss Siegewin.
As everyone doubtlessly saw, Miss Farina was displaying symptoms of hyperventilation and flushed skin. She was experiencing the adverse effects of exposure to primordial seawater. The extent to which she was affected is the same as up.
Thank you, Miss Siegewin. Lady Farina, you may return to the defendant's stand.
Se creía que por tocarla iba a desaparecer el tirón, no solo lo de eso. Cuando se disuelve en agua tiene menor efecto. Ah, vale, sí.
Oh, wait. What did she just say? I didn't get dissolved.
Sí, como le pasó a Freminen, ¿no? Que no se disolvió porque tenía muy poca cantidad.
Well, considering your tendency to run from your problems, we did originally prepare a direct sample of the seawater around Poisson. However, after extensive discussion, we exchanged it for a sample that is not concentrated enough to dissolve an actual human. After all, on the off chance that something entirely... we don't want anyone else to lose their life to the sea.
Yeah, so out of regard for Farina's life, you secured a low-concentration sample and asked that... It's a great thing that the direct sample wasn't actually...
I can't believe... You...
No entiendo nada, tío.
Listen to me, everyone. Please don't give me such... Think about it. How can you conclusively prove that an Archon can't also be affected by the primordial sea wall? Also, If I was really just a human, please, everyone, anyone, just listen to me. I swear, I really am your Archon.
I don't think anything she says at this point will sway anyone. The odds are just too stacked against her now.
With all the things that have been said, Paimon doesn't think there's any way left for Furina to win.
I believe the time for arguments and presentation of evidence has come to an end. If there are no objections, we will move on to the final judgment.
I don't think anything she says at this point will sway anyone. She's too stacked against her now.
In my capacity as Chief Justice, I shall now render judgment on Furina's misrepresentation of herself as the Archon of Fontaine. As a human who knowingly deceived her fellow citizens, Furina is... Guilty. We shall now turn to the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale to render the final verdict on the charges. According to the judgment of the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale, Furina is...
Va a poner innocent.
Well, what's wrong? What's the Oratrice's verdict?
No, the Oratrice also displays a guilty verdict.
Isn't that correct then?
However, the exact wording of the verdict is thus: the Hydro Archon, guilty.
Yo estoy flipando.
To be punished via the death sentence.
¿Qué?
The death sentence?
That's actually one of the available sentences? I've always thought that was just a myth.
The one and only time the death sentence has been handed out at the court, and it's been given to the very person we've worshipped as the god of justice? What an unexpected twist.
Furina's been sentenced to death by the Oratrice? We just wanted to use the trial to show her the seriousness of things so she'd tell us the truth. How did things escalate this quickly?
This outcome is indeed quite strange. According to Fontaine's current definitions of justice, as well as its recommendations for... Is this sentence really appropriate for the crimes that have been committed?
Yo estoy flipando. Yo estoy flipando fuertemente.
Even Faché wasn't sentenced to death by the Oratrice. You know, the real evil mastermind behind the serial disappearances
Es que eso
case.
pone Arcontre Hidro.
Indeed. Not only is Furina's sentence overly excessive, the very point of our trial today was also to prove that Furina has never been the Hydro Archon in the... But now, the Oratrice seems to have deliberately invoked the title of the Hydro Archon. What does this mean?
O sea, pero si en el caso de que realmente, en el fondo, no sé el por qué sea el Arconte Hidro y la condenen a muerte, eso significaría que Nubilet sí que tendría su verdadero poder. Pero claro, si muere y no es el Arconte Hidro, Nubilet no recuperaría su poder.
Excuse me, if I may interrupt. Is the trial's still going?
Joder, Fremine, mira qué pregunta.
Fremine! Oh, you finally made it. I assume...
Mm-hmm. Any mission Father assigned...
Is that the
esa es la placa que faltaba.
slate? Huh. So the knave privately arranged for Fremine to try and find the missing slate.
I looked everywhere and finally found it at the bottom of the sea. It took me a long time to get around some dangerous stretches of water. But has the trial already concluded? Then...
Thank you for your hard work, Mr. Fremine. Please allow me to review the record left on the slate. Traveler, I believe that you have already seen the other existing slates. I would like you to come here and confirm.
Huh? So what do you see? What is it?
I believe I have now made sense of the Hydro-Archon's crime. It has to do with Fontaine's lost history.
Creo que ya comprendo cuál fue el crimen del arconte Hydro. Tiene que ver con una parte de la historia ahora perdida de Fontaine.
Huh? Isn't the Hydro-Archon just guilty of deceiving her people? Oh, wait, no, that's Farina. And, so when you say Hydro-Archon, do you...
In truth, everything that you've encountered in Fontaine up until this point can be traced back to the contents of these stone slates.
Doña Dani.
However, I'm uncertain as to how much sense they currently make to you.
Es que ponían algo de voy a escribir el futuro en el pasado, ¿no? Algo así dijeron. Es decir, claro, habían en el pasado escrito el futuro y eso es lo que está pasando, ¿no?
Okay,
o lo que va a pasar
let's try
o
to
algo.
recall the contents of the other 3 stone slates. Paimon will do her best to help you remember.
Vale, observa las imágenes de las placas para extraer de ellas la información clave. Entre los incidentes apuntados en el manual de la entrevista, encuentra situaciones relacionadas con las imágenes de las placas para corroborar su veracidad. Juzgar el futuro con el pasado. Algo así, ¿no? Pero bueno, eso quería decir. Aumentará conforme avance el progreso de corroboración. Cuando corrobores la veracidad de todas las placas, se revelará la veracidad de la profecía. Okay.
The first stone slate describes what you just said. It seems to show the previous Hydro-Archon using her divine power, and then does that mean that Fontainians are transformed Oceanids? Oh, Paimon wasn't expecting that. But if Oceanids can turn into humans, then perhaps the second stone slate shows Celestia floating in the sky, and the Hydro-Archon and her people worshipping it together. But the heavens still brought judgment down upon. This must be the point when the Hydro-Archon and the Fontainians were branded with their original sin. Does this mean that the original sin and the Hydro-Archon sin are the same? The third slate shows the Hydro-Archon sinking into the sea surrounded by many people. That reminds Paimon, didn't we also watch that happen to someone else? Well, the fourth slate is the prophecy the Fontainians have been talking about. People dissolving into the sea, the Hydro-Archon crying on her throne, and so on.
Te das cuenta que para hacer una profecía de este calibre se necesita un poder monstruoso, ¿no? Sí. Sí. Exacto, en el pasado alguien profetizó el futuro que ocurrirá. Sí, bueno, eso es lo que había supuesto.
We didn't believe that such a crazy disaster could happen at first, did we? But after that incident, it was just a question...
Vale.
We know from the case of the serial disappearances of young women that Fontainians can be dissolved in primordial, and the first stone slate tells us that long ago the Hydro-Archon used her power to turn Oceanids into humans. This might be the reason that Fontainians can dissolve.
Rayada mental, muy fuerte, muy loca, ¿eh? No.
It's not as simple as falling into the sea. When Navia fell into the sea, her consciousness was subjected to judgment. The stone slates show the people gathered around the Hydro Archon in the sea.
Rayada mental. Pedías que la viajera hablara, pues aquí la tienes. Vale, tengo que justificar todos.
Perhaps what is about to take place has all happened before. The true sin of the Hydro Archon that Nervilette mentioned, and the original sin cast down on the people of Fontaine by Celestia, as recorded on the stone slates.
Perdón si no hablo mucho, estoy, tú sabes, ¿no? Flipando y a la vez intentando procesarlo y no equivocarme. No.
The prophecy from the stone slates found its way into society, but not many people believed it at first. The fortress of Meropide was nearly flooded with primordial seawater, which we know can cause Fontainians to dissolve. It seems increasingly likely that the prophecy may come true. If we hadn't dealt with it in time, things could have gone very badly.
They'll dissolve into the primordial sea but won't cease to exist. Their essence will flow in the seawater. The Hydro Archon was sentenced to death in court, shocking everyone present. Perhaps this means that her sin was actually Fontaine's original
Claro, como
sin.
ocurrió con este señor, con Noville, con el Tartas. A lo mejor por un crimen pasado, como habíamos mencionado, lo que hizo en Liwe. Tómate tu tiempo, que es mucha info para digerir, jajaja. Parece que Egeria, no sé si se pronuncia así, cometió un pecado muy grande y lo pagó ella y todo Fontaine. Cuando vea que sigue, se cae detrás de... Menos va a entender.
Navia fell into the water inside those ruins, and she nearly dissolved. She was surrounded by the people of Poisson in a court within her consciousness. The eruption of the primordial sea at the fortress of Meropide was the surest sign that the prophecy was about to come to pass no matter what. The stone slate's content can all be verified by recent events. If we combine what we know together, loads of truths should come to light. Gets it now, but then it feels like we're going to have to share some truly
Oye, pero es chocante mental que las personas de Fontaine no sean humanos en realidad, que sean oceánidas transformadas. Muy raro, ¿no? Tipo, claro, y luego el hijo de tal y tal, pues también una oceánida en el fondo, ¿no? Aunque inicialmente no lo sé. Raro.
Let's hear them.
Incredible. Linny, did you hear that?
We're not real humans.
All Fontainians were originally created by the late previous Hydro Archon, with Oceanids as their basis. The evidence for that can be found in how only Fontainians could dissolve in primordial seawater, And how all the girls Vache dissolved were also turned into Oceanids. Oh, and according to Navia, when she was about to get dissolved, she also saw everyone gathered around for a trial. All of them in the shape of Oceanids.
Indeed.
Yeah, and it follows from the content of the first slate that she probably anchored Celestia by creating humans without prior permission. That could also explain why the Oratrice judged the Hydro Archon to be guilty. It's to account for that ancient sin.
O sea, sí, tiene que ser su poder, ¿eh? Son las ciudades que Egeria hizo humanos, vamos, cometió el pecado de crear vida, lo que menos le gusta a Celestia. Ah, no sabía que era lo que menos le gustaba a Celestia, ¿verdad?
The Hydro Archon's true sin was creating us?
And yet, after many hundreds of years, the Hydro Archon's creations have turned around to try to judge the Archon within the Opera Epiclese.
Yeah, isn't the image here just like when Navia fell into the sea? So wouldn't it be trying to show the image of the Hydro Archon also falling into the sea once the prophecy has been fulfilled in the fourth slate? In the end, the people will all be dissolved into the waters, and only the Hydro Archon will remain weeping on her throne. Only then will the sins of the people of Fontaine be washed away. Did Paimon get all that right?
You've made some keen deductions. I must say, given how much you still don't know, it is impressive that you've already managed to connect so many pieces of the truth. However, while you were able to decode all the information on the slates, they've also been etched with an additional layer of hidden information using a different power. When we were at the ruins, I tried to decipher the hidden information recorded in the slates. But since we only had 3 slates at the time, I was unable to come to a full... Now that the slate collection is complete, I shall make another attempt to decipher the narrative recorded within. If everything goes...
Well?
I believe I should share this truth not only with you, but with all the people of Fontaine as well. I will try to briefly summarize it for you. Your hypotheses regarding the origin of Fontainians and the sin of the Hydro Archon were both correct. In the Fontaine of old, the previous Hydro Archon sensed the yearning of her Oceanid familiars for life on land. The Oceanids were enamored with the beauty and romanticism of human beings, and wishing to have those experiences for themselves, expressed to the Hydro Archon their desire to become of a similar kind. However, even though water as an element is intricately linked with the power of life, the Hydro Archon, not one to give in, she eventually found a way to create permanent humanoid bodies for her familiars by appropriating the power of this planet. She poured primordial seawater into the Oceanids' blood vessels, creating humanoid mimics in the process. But if Fontainians were to ever come into direct contact with water from the primordial sea, the power within their bodies would escape these artificial restraints and return to the sea. As a result, their forms would collapse, and of course, the Hydro Archon never received permission from the heavenly principles to create a new human race. And thus, the Hydro Archon and all of her creations came to shoulder the original sin of appropriating the power of the primordial sea. That is the true history of how the people of Fontaine first came into being.
So we were all Oceanids?
That's way too much information for me. I think I'm just going to pretend that I never heard a single thing. Wait, but if that's the truth, we can't let the Hydro Archon be sentenced to death?
This really might be too much information for your regular Fontainian, but it does answer a lot of our questions.
Y así los de Fontaine discriminaban a las melusinas siendo oceánidas. Vallita.
Alas, your hypothesis regarding the 3rd and 4th stone slates was inaccurate. The slates' respective positions, a key point of the visual on the 3rd slate, is how all the individuals depicted in the water are humans rather than Oceanids. They have not been dissolved, which implies that the water depicted in this slate is not water from the primordial sea. The nation of Fontaine is the nation of Hydro, as well as the nation of trials and justice. Instead of being the literal element, the water in the scene symbolizes judgment and justice. You may also recall Navia's experience. When she fell into the sea, her consciousness was surrounded by that of many others who intended to hold a trial to Therefore, the meaning of the third slate is that the people of Fontaine shall try the Hydro Archon at the court of justice. Yes, it refers to our present situation.
I think I'm following now. So, what you're saying is, even though we decided to put on this trial to avoid fulfilling the prophecy, in truth, everything we've done has happened exactly as the prophecy foretold. So now, it seems...
What should we do?
Huh. No matter what, the prophecy will be fulfilled.
If that's the case, does that mean the scene in the fourth slate will also be fulfilled soon?
Traveler, I would like to point out another small fallacy in your deductions. About the fourth slate, you probably thought that the eruption of primordial seawater beneath the fortress of Meripedes. However, I believe that rather than being a sure sign, that eruption could in fact only be a small warning. As for the root cause of the catastrophe, I believe you've already encountered it once before.
Okay. Origen de la catástrofe.
This eruption is just a small warning of the things to come. We must find the root cause of the disaster.
Vale. Vale. ¿Cuál es el verdadero origen de la catástrofe? Se encontraron volcanes en un misterioso asesinato. Culpable. Maldición. La ballena.
It was both dream and reality.
If we're talking about a true culprit, that could only be that thing inside the primordial sea, right?
The truth, the original sin, the trial, and the root cause of the disaster.
Se me había olvidado, todavía me tengo que pegar con la ballena. Eso lo había olvidado por completo. Hostia. ¿Y mi sugar? Hostia, Neubi, tío. Ay, se quiere comer al Neubi. Ay, Neubi, no. ¿Qué le ha hecho Neubi? ¿Se lo ha comido? No, usted no. ¡Ay! ¡El tetas! Uy, se ha venido un poquito el temazo del boss. ¡Ay, no!
That was way too close! How did that thing just burst into the opera house? Wait, was that the huge whale you saw in your dream?
So we've met it at last. I understand very well why it is chosen to make That whale does not belong to Tevat. It is a monster that has traversed the stars, weeping. It has been greedily consuming the energy from the planet's primordial sea, using it to grow. That is the main cause for the rising sea levels.
Coño. Se acerca un bicho a mi cara.
And once it has finished consuming all of the energy contained within the sea.
You said that when the Hydro Archon first created Fontainians out of Oceanids, She filled their blood vessels with primordial seawater.
Precisely. That whale finds the blood of Fontanians nigh impossible to resist. Therefore, when it left the primordial sea, it decided to make its next stop a packed opera house full of food. Food in the form of Fontanians.
We just barely managed to push it back, right? In that case, won't it come back to target the people again once it's managed to recover its strength?
That is correct. Indeed, it is more accurate to say that we should thank that harbinger for buying us some time. Without him, the whale would have likely come onto land far sooner. From the way he looked, he must have been fighting the creature for quite a long time.
That battle maniac. We've always known
Pero eso
that
le hace daño al Novil, ¿no? Le quita vida. Me refiero, le quita tiempo de vida al Novil realmente, ¿no?
Anyway, now that we know that this whale is the actual cause of the disaster recorded in the prophecy, all we need to do to stop the prophecy would be to find a way to beat it up, right?
It is too late. It had already absorbed too much of the primordial sea's energy before we could notice it.
No te preocupes,
At this
Novil,
point,
es que
it
vengo
has become
con
practically
una espada de
integrated
una
with the sea
estrella, no sé
itself.
si la hemos mejorado, pero bueno, una ballernita a mí no me va a hacer nada.
Even if the entirety of Tevat were to be destroyed, it could still survive
en el chat.
and swim off
No leas el
towards some
chat.
other
Vale.
world.
That's not something I will accept.
Nunca ha dicho el chat. Es posible que si Teyvat fuera destruido, la ballena sobreviviera y viajara a otros mundos, tía. Los sorbemundos.
We've already done everything we can, and we even found the true culprit. We've come so far. You can't just tell me that the last hurdle is some impossible foe. That's just—
Indeed, that's not how a grand performance should end.
I'll fight it to the end, no matter what.
Ay, Clorin.
So the prophecy will be fulfilled no matter what, huh?
The prophecy. Yes, what has been prophesied will be fulfilled. You may view such things as the history of the future. Just as prophecies are usually only the future as seen from the perspectives of the gods, could things be happening in hidden corners where the gods' gaze does not fall? Ultimately, fate shall serve as your only guide, no matter what will happen in Tevat's future. All you need to do is to play your part.
Que solo tienes que hacer lo que debes hacer. ¿Cuál es el secreto?
What's happening with the oratories?
Cojones.
I believe it is preparing to carry out the death sentence.
No.
No, I still need answers.
No, ve que pedazo de salto ha dado. ¿Quién es esa? ¿Quién es esa? mona! ¡Qué mona!
You.
Uy, esa voz.
Sorry. That shocked expression on your face is just too
¿Y esa voz?
amusing. I could...
You are not Farina. Who are you?
The sweet sound of bewilderment. Marvelous. A sure sign that my attempt to deceive everyone was a resounding success.
Si tan
But to
atónitos estás
answer
es
your
porque logré
question,
engañarles a todos.
I am Fosalor. You know, the god.
Fosalor. Why did you deceive us?
Oh, that wasn't my goal, of course. Goodness, no. The heavenly principles.
Deceiving the heavenly principles.
It's all because of that pernicious prophecy. Dreadful, wasn't it? Everyone doomed to dissolve. Fontaine condemned to be flooded. One was not amused. In fact, one was positively bemused when that problem was thrust upon me by my dearest predecessor. That's the former Hydro Archon Egeria, for the uninitiated. It hardly gets more disastrous than a preordained national catastrophe, now does it? She knew full well that the prophecy would surely come to pass. And as one of the seven, she also knew full well that one defies the heavenly principles at one's peril. So yes, as you have no doubt surmised, it was a rather impossible situation that I found myself in. I spent a terribly long time mulling it over, alone on the ocean floor. And I was almost growing barnacles by the time I finally realized there was only one possible solution to this. I had to outwit the heavenly principles, allow the prophecy to be fulfilled, ostensibly at least. Well, I'm a genius, I know. I can only assume that's why Egeria chose me as her successor. Although, looking back now, it was hardly the inheritance one dreams of. Between the task of saving the nation, the quotidian duties of the Hydro Archon, and not to mention the original sin of creating a new race of humans. But one can only play the hand one is dealt. I did not choose this, any more than I chose to be one of her...
So you were also once one of the Oceanids, transformed into a human by Egeria's hand?
Yes, I was. I always dreamed of becoming human. And I still do, even now. In my eyes, to be human is to be part of the greatest opera ever known. After becoming a god, I separated my divinity from my body and spirit, leaving behind only a self that was as naive and bewildered as my past self on her first day as a human being. The me you see before you now is that divinity, and the human counterpart I left behind, I named Farina. She could feel joy, sorrow, and everything in between. She could be as vain and conceited. Her strengths were of a kind only a human could possess, as were her shortcomings. But in my eyes, Farina's humanity was what made her perfect. She was perfectly human in every way. The person I always wanted to be. Anyway, so then I cursed her.
Por la cara.
All part of the plan, of course. The plan to deceive the heavenly principles. Do you still remember the final scene of the prophecy? The Hydra Archon alone, weeping on her throne. In order that the prophecy might appear fulfilled, I invited Farina to be an actress, to play the part of the Hydro Archon in the prophecy. Under the curse I placed on her, so long as I, Fosalor's divinity, continued to exist, she could not die. But nor was she free to live her life in the pursuit of happiness. Instead, she was forced to take the stage in the opera house, to embrace the role of leading lady, to forever play the part of the god from the prophecy. I suppose now you probably understand why your court is called the Opera Epiclese.
But Farina is only human, isn't she? Even though she has had a long life, her mind is no stronger than that of any other ordinary human being. I cannot begin to fathom what she has had to endure.
It has indeed. And although she is, in a sense, me in human form, it's been 500 years. And all along, she's been playing her part in the most unimaginably long, unbearably lonely, and agonizingly painful opera of all time.
Vamos, que aplicó la de la Shogun, ¿no? Aplicó la de hacerse una marioneta. Perfecto. ¡Farina, pelo corto! ¡Farina, pelo corto! Sabía que estabas en algún sitio, reina. ¿No? Ah, no, no es Farina, pelo corto. Me cago en la puta. Es que he visto el guante negro y he dicho Farina, pelo corto. Tío, ¿y dónde está Farina, pelo corto? Yo me estoy rayando. O Farina, pelo corto era para no spoilear Focalors. Yo estoy rayadísima, tío. Qué paranoia mental me está dando. Bueno, chicos, vamos a dejarlo aquí. Y nada, estoy flipando. En realidad no entiendo nada. O sea, he entendido algunas cosas, pero no entiendo nada. Así que nada, muchísimas gracias por llegar hasta aquí, por ver el vídeo. No te olvides de darle like y suscribirte para el último capítulo de Fontaine. Nos vemos en el siguiente vídeo. Gracias.